platform do you use when you scratch with other turntablists online?
I like the Tiny Chat thing. Just the turntable training wax, practice your cuts, Tiny Chat.
Okay,
room.
yeah. Is that synced completely? As in, like, is there a half a second delay?
So it's not like jamming. It's kind of more like you take turns, put your own beat on, and cut over that, and then when you're done, you stop. The next person puts their beat on. I don't really know if there is kind of any sort of software where you can really like jam in real time.
I was just going to ask.
Do
you know of one? Is there a software where we can do that? Because it's quite important for us guys, I think.
It's hugely important, but I mean, like Zoom and everything, you know, you can't. I don't like the word "can't," but it's almost impossible.
You can't.
You literally can't.
So shouts out to Lyndon J. So he's been doing live streams with. He's in a group. He's in London, and the singer's in LA, and so they've done like a real crazy workaround where he will play the beat in his earphones and play along to it, then stream that to the singer. So when the singer sings, he's singing in time with the beat, and then that stream goes out live. So that's like some mad.
We just heard a few.
So it's like a really cool workaround, and they've been doing these live streams, and they're playing together in real time. But obviously it's not in real time, but we're seeing it as real time. And I think it's really clever that all these ideas and these kind of models of how to perform online and how to access and perform as a group or with someone without that lag. So for people like us, yeah, it's really important, and it's always been an issue. Like you try and jam with someone and you work out you can't do it, or online it's like, damn it, it makes that disconnect that just little bit extra. But now there's things like that, so exploring those kind of things is, I think, yeah, for us will be cool. And
for beatboxers, we had Ventrilo.
Oh, back in the day, yeah.
Back in the day, yeah. I don't know if they've got Ventrilo 5 now or something.
Now it's Discord that everyone uses, the beatboxers.
Discord,
yeah, which actually Boxcon Global, who are streaming this as well today, that's where they've been doing their platform throughout lockdown. But I mean, these are different places. Have you had any contact with other turntablists throughout lockdown?
Yeah.
Who? Who and why?
Yeah.
And when? And how? Yeah, how actually?
Just sometimes via FaceTime, scratching that way. It's not the best, but sometimes that works.
Okay, fair. And is this developing ideas? Are you sort of scratching it, or are you trying to get each other just to train, keep a bit of communication?
Yeah, just jamming. Yeah. You know, just cutting it up over a beat and that.
Do you guys have team partners at all, or do you work in teams or groups at all? Oh, all three. Oh, these two and stuff. Sorry, that was elongated to like it could have been all three of us. I don't know if you had cramp in your hand then. It was like remember which side of town is. We're not north now.
Me and Jordan do some stuff sometimes. It's fun.
Yeah, no, I saw you guys competed last year at the IDAs.
Yeah.
Yep.
We won.
And won. Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah. So how far away do you live from each other?
We both live in Manchester, but we kind of live. Jordan lives like in the north, and I live in the south. So we can do it. We make it work.
Yeah. Okay. And for practically, what is your best method? Say if you were given a task like you've got a gig you need to do next week. It's an hour set. I mean, it could be a 10-minute routine. It could be an hour set. How would you prepare for that together?
Show me to answer this one.
We know what Statik doesn't do, so you know.
I think like the things that we've done have normally been like a routine for a battle or something like that. And I think normally like just try and get together and get the ideas down. Like we normally would like talk about what we think we're going to do or what might be a good idea
on WhatsApp.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, this I'm talking like pre-lockdown kind of thing. But I think like normally just kind of talk the ideas out and see what works and probably do something completely different when it materializes.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to pass the same question to these two who are part of the same crew that we're in, and I know the process, but I want to hear their answer as well, because it is from writing ideas to thinking ideas to until you sort of get together and actually sort of go, oh, that works, that doesn't work, that might work back there, etc.
Yeah, I think like last year we had like an idea that we kind of like fleshed it out quite a lot, and then we just completely like threw it away at the last minute and did something else. But I think it turned out for the best, really. Like it I think like we needed to spend probably that amount of time on the thing that didn't work to be like, wait a minute, are we kind of missing a trick? Should we just kind of stick to something that's a bit more us sort of thing? And I think it worked out better in the end.
So and is that in a sense of again, say you're trying something and if it doesn't work, are you say if this is competition, you're always trying to exceed and come up with a next level combination techie something? Are you trying to achieve something that's never been done before? And how do you do that between two people?
I don't think we've ever particularly been trying to like looking at it from that point of view. I think whenever we've done stuff, we've just tried to do something that we thought sounded good. And I think especially like when you're working with other people, it's more difficult than working on your own anyway.
Oh, I know. What was that? So, okay, that's cool. I was just checking a note on the floor that had been left there. So, but that's the same thing. It was like for these guys, we have multiple emails and everything, and then we get together. There was a time we actually became the World Beatbox Champions in 2015. Mums are delighted. It's a huge one. It's a huge at the back. But amazing that again, there was 7 of us in the collective at the time, but we had 5 of us going for it. And only 2 or 3 of us could make the rehearsals for the first month or 2. We were meant to have 15 rehearsals. And you know what it's like to win or to compete in a DMC or any championships. You need to go absolutely in and practice every day. And we had 3 of us practicing it. And then when we had one final rehearsal, like the week before the World Championships, all 5 of us came in together and we had a 2-hour studio session. And we got the first routine done in about 15, 20 minutes. And we were going, well, should we work out a second routine in case we get to the final? And it was just, obviously, there and then, all the ideas that you've had previously, combining them, obviously trying to put a diss in there or something like that. But it was one of those things where, yeah, until you're together, everything unlocks. Everything, it just makes sense. You've got those ideas in your head, but having that capability. What do you guys think on preparation?
Is this post-lockdown or lockdown?
It's
the first one is a lot easier.
Pre-lockdown, let's say how we
as the collective, because with
collective,
as you know
with
very
Hobbit,
well,
multiple
Rupert,
teams,
we all do individual things.
Yeah.
So it's pretty hard to get us all together in the same room, isn't it? Like
well, that's my job.
Yeah, exactly. And you do really good at that, to be honest.
Thanks. That's on camera, right?
So post Corona, we would all just meet up, basically. Kind of this, I think a lot of people have the same process. We'd just get into a room together and just start jamming. And a lot of our routines, Belle has a bit of a different way of working, and she's wrote some amazing songs for us, for the collective, and her process is kind of sitting down on her own and panning out the parts and stuff. But as you guys know, we just get in a room, have a chill, start jamming, and then be like, that was sick, let's keep that, let's adapt on that, let's elaborate on that bit, and yeah, from there. That's why it's so hard with this Corona stuff, because it's hard to kind of all get in a room and just get that natural vibe going. That's the struggle that I've... And
I was going to say, to add to that, because we've been jamming together for so long, we can... for beatboxing, we can identify the strengths, who's got the best bass and whose sounds work fit. So I'm curious to know, like, is it similar with with scratching? Like, you can do a certain scratch which is slightly better than mine, or is it the same way? Like, your techniques, different things, you've got different moves and cuts that you can both do strengths and weaknesses. Like,
I was going to say, like, sometimes just work on strengths of like certain things. So like Tom's strength is really his cutting, and I'm not really a cutter, I'm more of a beat juggler.
Yeah.
So we'll have sections where like we'll do stuff together, but then it might be like, right, you have a section where you just solo and do whatever, and then I have a section where I go solo and do whatever, and then it just comes back into like the actual track we were doing beforehand.
Yeah, man, it
sounds a lot more organised than us.
Well, again, they've got 2 people. Bear in mind, we've got sort of 5.5, 6 people
dotted around the UK.
Yeah, all dotted
all
around stuff. Yeah. Ballsy was stuck in India for how long?
10 months.
I went for 3 weeks. I was there for 7.5 months. That's great.
Anyway, and his internet reception was terrible.
Oh, it was great until the power cut. Yeah. Basically.
But that's an interesting point, because fun enough, I'm going to pass that question over again to Zani, actually. So how precious can you be if you're working in a team? How precious are you going, oh, I want to do that bass line? Or again, is it like going, no, do you know what? You do it better. Or, because we have the same thing as them, everyone's got the idea of the sound, and then we all have to sort of, I don't know, we all agree that...
I want to do the bass.
Yeah, I want to do the bass.
Yeah, this
but
like
it's what sounds most like the track, or it's what sounds best, and that's the common denominator, going like, that sounds best, we're going that, and then you just have to cut your tie where you're going, oh, I really want to do that bass line.
Yeah, man, I think what I've always found is like, even when like Jordan was saying about, we'll do something together and then we'll go into, I'll kind of drop back a bit and you do what you're really good at, then vice versa sort of thing. I think really like what I find is like working with other people, it's more about like not even thinking that and just being like, okay, let's maybe just not think about I'm really good at this in a solo capacity, so I'm going to do this in a group capacity. It's more like, let's just kind of like both take a step back and do something that we couldn't do on our own, that wouldn't work on our own. It only works kind of with 2 people or 3 people or whatever it is on that given day. And like kind of like taking a step back from that, I want to get my like show off 8 bars in, or I want to do this thing which I've been working on, like, because you can always do that. Those are things you can do in your solo sets anyway. So like, I think as difficult as it is, and like, you know, we still do those things, but it's like, I think the best bits come out when you really like take a step back and like, you know what, I'm just going to leave that to one side, and this is a group thing, it's not the solo thing, I'm going to do something a bit different.
I think that's really interesting, because like when so the same thing with kind of all the elements of kind of the craft of beatboxing and turntablism. If you're like a solo beatboxer and you're performing, like you do all the technical, really geeky stuff, but that necessarily won't be good for an audience to hear. So when you're performing in a group, you kind of step back, like you're saying, and you do like less is more sometimes. You want to create music, or you want to create a sound that you're hearing. You just don't want to geek out necessarily all the time. And I noticed that with a lot of turntablists now, you're structuring a lot and making more of a sound, a full sound, rather than just like super tech, and then it becomes more like a musical, sonically pleasing kind of thing.
I think it's like I say, it's more about being like a member of the band sort of thing, and like, you know, you don't get like a
triangle,
you don't get like a guy doing a drum solo, a guitar solo, and a bass solo all at the same time. It's like,
have you heard these guys? Come on.
Yeah, I love it though. My favorite thing,
it takes up a lot of space, and it's like, yeah, I think it's like the same with beatboxing, man. Like as a guitar player, you might kind of you come up thinking like, oh, I want to play in a band. Like I love this band and I love these songs, and the things you love, the riffs and melodies that are in the context of a band. But for a beatboxer or a turntablist, you come up most of the time being like, this guy's dope, or like this DJ's dope. And the stuff you idolize is mostly in a solo context, so it's kind of harder to like actually, even without the experience, it's harder to get into that group mindset, because you're not as much of a group artist kind of by just the nature of what you're doing. I mean, I know Rasp has done a lot of stuff working with bands and things, so I don't know if he wants to speak on what it's like fitting in with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just making space and shining when it's your turn to shine. You know what I mean? And just adding to the music rather than overpowering the music. You know what I mean?
That's fun. It's a great, especially if you work in a band. It's like what's too much and what's too little, and especially like the force as a turntablist, you can put any sound on the slip mat, and you can add to it. You know, we try very hard to replicate every instrument and fill sounds and frequencies, and it's quite good when you've got your ear. I mean, I do a lot of contextual sounds when we do stuff with the collective, but you've got a good example of like. And I think it actually came from Sparks, as in like it's like, even if you're the cranky hi-hat, whatever it was, Jimmy hi-hats.
I love it.
I love that stuff. But again, we were talking about like how many things can you do while rubbing your stomach and patting your head and doing a bass and playing a guitar and a tambourine, But like at the same time, the example is like again, if the track only requires one other person just to go. I mean, like, are we not utilising Ballsy to its fullest capability? Like, he should be doing 5 things at once.
Give me the simplest things. It's great. I love it.
No, that's what I want. I want the simple. But that's it. But if you are that is your instrument, and you have to own it.
That's
and again, even if it is just that,
you have to do
5
it right.
minutes later.
It's got to be in time. It's got to be musical.
It's got to be musical. It's got to be in the pocket, and
because there's a lot of beatboxers that are seriously sick technically, but you get them to jam with someone, and their timing's all over the place because all they've done is just geek out by themselves. And when you put them up with another instrumentalist, a rapper, or a singer, or another beatboxer, you can really kind of see where their timing is, and that's the musicianship that comes. It's the same thing with cutting and stuff as well. Like, man.
I think like something that I always come back to is like, I can't remember who said it, but like if you think about it, like the same thing with beatboxing as using turntables. Like it's a relatively like young art form. Like it's not been around for a long time. Whereas you look at something like a guitar or a piano, there's so much history behind it, which the people that are playing it now are drawing on. And if you listen to like more traditional like recorded music that's in a band, like when do you hear a song and you're like, I really like how the bass and the drums are doing something completely different on their own, and like I really like the fact that they're not in time with each other. The things that you're drawn to, there's normally like one idea, and everything's backing up and building on that idea. Sometimes it is going against it, but it's going against it with the intention of emphasizing it, or something like that. And I think that's something that, like, again, it's like hard for people that do the things we do sometimes to kind of click with, because you just don't have the history and that kind of, like, you know, if you get into a band with some guys that have been playing a lot longer, they know these things, whereas there's not that much of that for people that do what we do. There's not people to be like, yo, you need to really, like, step back and, like, listen, and it's not about being you, it's more like, you know, yo, you got to battle and be the best, and, like, okay, well, now we've got 5 people that are the best, so let's all be the best at the same time. It doesn't really work.
No, you're absolutely right. And I wanted to go back to Rasp. Like, so working with bands, it's quite a broad question, but working with bands or working with turntablists, what do you prefer?
Would you rather?
It's all music, right? But
yeah, it's all music. I like doing both. You know, like
Careful, you're sitting next to 2 right now, so
just jamming alongside other DJs. You know, put a beat on and everyone just cuts it up and shows skills. Like, that's fun. But, like, making music with a band and making, like, you know, an actual song and then going out performing it, that's a different buzz in itself. You know what I mean?
Which turntablists have you seen, which might have inspired you to work with the band over the years? What turntablists have you seen working?
DJ Disc from the Invisible Scratch Pickles.
Of course, yeah.
Who else? D-Styles.
Yeah.
I've seen him jam along other people. Rob Swift.
Yeah.
He's jammed with, like, you know, plenty of, like, Herbie Hancock and all the jazz people and that, like, you know.
Yeah. Which the amazing thing there, especially with Herbie Hancock and everything, it suddenly introduces the turntable as an instrument, which, again, because you can create any sound, but the patterns and the manipulation, and that's sort of where we're trying to sort of go with beatboxing. You know, going like, well, what's saying that we couldn't set up 20, 30 of us and make an orchestra if each person can own that sound? And you've seen concerto for turntables, or, you know, there's lots of projects like that sort of thing where, again, whether it's lots of turntablists or if it is one turntablist, it's an instrument or it is in fact the entire band. But you guys have obviously worked with musicians around the world. I mean, like, Zani's toured with Jay Sean, Ballsy, he just toured the US. I mean, working with a musical group or working with beatboxers. I mean, we're still musical.
As in, like, what do I prefer, or just describe both?
If you could describe both, yeah. I know what you prefer, of course.
Yeah,
you have the time of life for
you
us.
guys, of course. I like doing the shows with bands and stuff, just because I improved so much. Like, when I'm jamming with a full band, one of the first experiences of that was when I joined Extracurricular. Shout out to those guys, a band from Huddersfield and Leeds and whatnot, and they asked me to join them to do the live shows when this is like around 10 years ago now. And I noticed from coming off stage the first time, I was like, oh shit, I need to get a bit better with certain things. It wasn't like I was out of time or I made the show terrible at all. Those guys really enjoyed it, but I heard certain notes where the bass player would hit a note and I'd just be like a split second too early. And I thought my timing was perfect, you know, and I'm like, shit, and I'm up here with all these guys who have studied at these amazing music unis and they're all playing this crazy jazz stuff, and I'm here going... But it wasn't that out of time, but I just noticed
everyone loved that,
how in the pocket those guys were, and how I was just... It wasn't like I was super messy, it worked, it was fine, but I came away from that being like, wow, okay, working with these guys is going to just level me up massively. And I did that for a few years, and then, never had that problem again. And then when I did the America tour, it was all to click, and that again was just kind of boring in the sense, but also amazing, because you have to... That's going for 90 minutes throughout the show. It changes tempo at times, and you have to stick with it. And if you don't, then everything goes to pot. So
I'd go home.
So in that sense, I love it. And also, like Rasp said, it's a different buzz. It's a completely different thing. When I was playing shows with Extracurricular in front of big crowds, and you've got like the sax section and the bass and the drummers going off behind you, and I'm not even beatboxing at this point. I'm just going, and it's like, it's a different thing, you know. So
yeah, man. I was gonna just to add on to that. It's like when you jam with musicians, you have to put your musician hat on, and you have to just, if you do get the hi-hat, own that hi-hat. You have to be in time, and you have to own that pocket. And I love jamming with musical beatboxers because they understand that, and you kind of just fit in. Like, not everyone's trying to do the sickest bass line. You're listening for that space, like you said. You're trying to find that pocket or that gap where you can just do your one sound every 4 bars. Like, I'm just gonna wait for it.
How sick is it though? You've got like,
just wait for it.
And you got like a hi-hat, but it's just after the snare. And
just after.
All you're doing is, but it's on the offbeat, and for like 2 minutes.
Love it, love it.
But is this a place in music to replace a drummer with a beatboxer or a turntablist?
Why not do both? You know.
I mean, when you say do both, what are you saying? Having the drum already playing in the background while the turntablist or beatboxer cuts over it?
Yeah, you could do that. You could have them doing it at the same time. Syncopation and stuff.
Do you not think those the two sounds? You know, it's like when we beatbox stuff. It's like two of us can't do a bass line at the same time, or we shouldn't have two of us doing snares and kicks and everything.
I mean, you can because you see bands that have two drummers as well, and it's when one person's focusing on the highs, the other person will focus on tom toms and stuff. Yes, and I guess it's the same. It's just working out what works sonically and like finding the space again, like just making an arrangement that fits. Like if we're both beatboxers and we're both going to do beats, like when we were freestyling, we're both doing it, but you know, you'll do snares and I'll do kicks, and just look for that and really be attentive and be aware of what else is happening. Like that's why I love jamming with you early on, because I was just like, I haven't done that for fucking ages.
One more round of applause for the jam earlier, by the way. We're going to get back into that very shortly.
Yeah, and that's the shit why we started, man, because that's what we love. That's like the essence of it, is jamming, being part of that cipher, and to have that, like as beatboxers, because we're lucky, I guess, because we don't have to have the equipment and you have those circles. But when we step into these ciphers, when you've got the technology and we've got you guys scratching alongside us, like, and I can instantly hear that you guys have the ear for it. So we listen. We're listening for that space. And we heard us doing the bass line. Statik was like, yeah, I'm going to do a bass line now. Brought in a bass line. And I love that. I love that kind of thinking on the spot. Okay, you're jamming, you're freestyling. It's like organised freestyle almost. But yeah, big up.
You said earlier about like whether you were saying turntablism and beatboxing as a young scene or anything like that. Again, like beatbox for my personal influence, and I think we were talking about the old DMC VHS videos and stuff. Whatever you used to have to go off to practice, you know, to watch back in the day and everything. Again, there was never really, like, beatboxing is still quite weird. This is the 15th year this year of the UK Beatbox Championships that we managed to do online this year. Check out all the results on ukbeatboxchampions.com. So, but again, the whole idea, my influence was replicating turntablists. As in, like, and nowadays you have a lot of beatboxers who've never seen someone scratch. They don't understand the concept of the scratch, or they've never sort of really gone to try vocal scratching and stuff. I don't know, you find a lot of beatboxers, they have the most incredible phonetics and all sorts, but they don't associate to scratching. It just seems to have gone and
it's the new school beatboxers, because their access to beatboxing was instantly like some of the sickest beatboxers. When we started, we didn't have that access, so we were kind of just the audio clips, and like the DMCs was still around then, so it was very prominent in my growing up in development of being a beatboxer, seeing DJs going to the live events and seeing all these people scratching, beatboxing, rapping, like all the elements are there. I guess it's kind of, there is a slight disconnect with the new school generation of beatboxers with how they are like growing up. They think they don't even know beatboxing started from hip hop. You know what I mean? They think beatboxing.
None of them know who Bismarck is.
You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's like up to us to like keep that culture alive and understand its roots and where it comes from. Like, it's really important, and it's this stuff like this that makes that shit alive, keeps that shit alive. Yeah.
But I mean, connects the dots, doesn't it?
Yeah, man.
And but I mean, it was from the beatbox scene. It's, you know, so young. You know, you've got the b-boy scene, you've got the turntables, and you know, it's every sort of 10 years there's a new sort of shift. At the same time, it's been around for ages. You know, beatboxing, turntables. You don't see enough turntablism with beatboxing. I mean, other than here live at Beatgeek here in 2020. But at the same time, like that whole, you know, when you work with a band, do you work with rappers? You know, there's so many elements to this hip hop thing. You know, again, we were saying like, oh, it'd be great to have some break dancers down here. You know, so just, I mean, there's so many grooves, there's so many things. But again, when it's all happening at the same time. But again, beatboxers seem to. I had that influence. I mean, I used to try and do DJ Scully routines. You know, like yeah. But whatever it was, you know, but it was all about the samples. You know, the samples and the voices and the choices that you made to find, and again, when it was strictly vinyl and, you know, you had to search for that one little bit, tape it up and everything like that. Nowadays, with technology and everything like that, I mean, do you still enjoy going for a little dig in the crates?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Or is Google your best friend?
it's good to dig in the crates. Now, like you said, we've got all this technology, so you can find any sample. The only limitation nowadays is your imagination.
Yeah.
But sometimes I like them limitations. I've been doing it a long time. I've been doing it since '96 before.
Represented the UK Beatbox Championships as well. DJ Rasp, been around.
Did a gig in
I've been around.
Huddersfield.
So when I started, it was just all about records and the samples that you find and the tunes that you flipped when you do a routine. You can still do that now, but now you can put any sound onto the turntables via a computer or whatever, via an MP3 file, and just flip it. But yeah, I still have fun, digging through records, finding samples. Yeah, I like doing that. It's part of me. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I like buying records because I like records and looking for samples for making beats and stuff, but I would not ever choose to play a set on vinyl.
No, fair. That's a fair answer.
I just don't see. For me, but I know some people do, and like sometimes
it's convenience, isn't it?
When I watch someone play a wicked set on vinyl, I'm like, yo, that's dope. Like they really went through the struggles of marking the records up, doing something with vinyl. But like for me, I'm just like, well, I feel like I've got ideas in my head that I've not made yet, and this stuff's helping me make them. So why would I want to like spend my energy on trying to make something work in a way that I'm forcing it when there's something in front of me that I can like more accurately articulate what I'm trying to express. So I think for me that's why I like it. But it's whatever's like your personal expression, isn't it? Really, like if you're more personally connected to buying records and doing that, then you're going to be more true to yourself doing that. Yeah. So it's just whatever's like to me. I don't diss people that use it because I like seeing it and I'm like, I can see that you resonate with that and that's you. But for me personally, the more tricks and things you can give me, I like having the options and having like more brushes in my palette or whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely, yeah. No, weapons in the artillery and stuff. Statik, what have you been? Have you been going shopping? If you're not practicing, are you going shopping?
To put it bluntly, no.
But where do you get your samples from? I mean, like, obviously just like sellotape them off Pnuts' laptop and everything, but...
Yeah, Soulseek.
Saucy.
No,
someone needs to sample that from Statik and throw it back at you at a battle, like, sauce, some of the apple was saucy. I tried.
But I do like buying scratch records from Turntable Training Wax because they're good for cutting and practicing.
And where can you find them?
Turntable Training Wax.
.com?
.com?
.com, there we go.
But for real, I much prefer cutting on vinyl. I don't want to get it twisted. Like scratching, which to me is kind of like a separate thing. There's like the solo thing of scratching and just like having one sound and like really zoning out and like improvising and trying to construct a solo like in the moment. To me, like every time I'd rather do that on vinyl. Like there's no comparison. Like it's more tactile. It feels better. If I could have that feel with all this other stuff, but I don't think you'll ever have that. So like, for me, there's a place for it. Like if you're a cutter, a scratcher, and you're focusing on like the solo scratching and really expressing yourself through that one thing, then you have to use vinyl, and you can only get those different sounds by getting different records or whatever. Anyway, back to
the purist.
Statik.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
Chapter 2.
Yeah, so I suppose like when I started scratching and turntables and stuff, I started out on vinyl, but it wasn't because like I was like, oh, I'm a purist or anything. It's just because I couldn't afford Serato at the time, and then ended up competing and just realised it was an absolute pain in the ass when the venue's got subs right underneath the stage and you're getting people laughing at you and calling you shit and stuff like that. And
you've tried being a beatboxer ever? No.
Yeah, but I don't really. I mean, if you do a vinyl set and you kill it, fair enough. Props to you, but you won't catch me doing a vinyl set ever again.
So I can't wait for April Fools. Your tech rider's just going to be all over the place.
But it's just I don't like. I like limitation when I started out because it was like, right, I can limitate makes me more creative and makes me come up with more like technical stuff like with sticker loops and feedback and stuff like that. But that was at the time, and now like my setup now has got like a launch pad and mixed with buttons on it. I like to be able to like do stuff with other things like Ableton and like try and do things on Serato as well.
No, wicked. That is less R-make as well. I mean, that's
and plus,
but that's
lugging records everywhere.
Got to save your scratching arm. That's my scratching hand. so again, it's the same thing with beatbox when we're saying about like some new technology and new sounds. Again, we're purists in our own ways. Like we like no effects, or anything like that. However, there are now loop stations that are taking out. I mean, it's people have broken the technology. However, on the sense of, if you're beatboxing, yeah, you get your microphone EQ'd and all sorts. I was chatting to Jesse about different mics, and there are different microphones for beatboxing. What do you think of, what's the difference between a good mic or a good engineer?
I think they go hand in hand, really. I mean, if you've got a shit mic, you're already limited, but if you've got a mic that can withstand, that has the right frequency response, and you've got a good sound engineer, like, you have to go in properly if you've got like full compression, full EQ, and you know what frequencies you want to ring out, you know which ones you want. You can get your mic sounding really nice, and that's like a lot of beatboxers that come into it. Or when I first started, especially, I didn't know anything about EQing or knowing. You thought you could just turn up to a gig and just be like boom, 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 everything's great, but then you realise there's feedback and it's gone, and you're like, but you start to see other gigs and see other performers, and you realise like the sound check is probably one of the most important things, and watching other beatboxers and other people perform at high levels, you look and you learn and you watch and you digest information. And I think beatboxing nowadays is and music in general, I think we're very spoilt now, like, because we've got so much accessibility. It's almost, music's become a bit disposable, and I think back in the day what we had was if you wanted to hear a DJ play a song, you had to go to see him live or listen to his radio show, because he's got that one dub plate that no one else has.
Get the tape ready,
get record at the same time. Yeah. And I guess that in that sense, like the new generation of kids, they've got so much access and they're improving and they're getting better and better with production stuff, but they don't understand that because they never had to live through that. Like, I'm going to listen to DJ whatever because he's got that sound and I'm waiting for him to play it. Like, I remember that, man. It was so sick.
But even like I was just saying about live performance and whether the EQ and anything, would you ever consider doing something like a full set with like phaser and a flanger or a MIDI sort of like, I don't know, you work with, in fact last year at Beatgeek you were working with the Akai sampler, so you do a whole, you fuse it with sampling and everything.
Yeah, when I sample myself into the drum pads I EQ them, and sometimes I'll put a little bit of effects on it, but I try and keep it as original sounding as possible. So if it's I'll just EQ that and compress it a bit, but I won't really use that many effects like that. But I remember, because I make beats as well, when they gave me the MPC I was just making beats for fun, and I can't remember the name of the plugins that they have like a new one on the new MPC.
If you could find out that description of that would be great. Yeah,
they were amazing. But yeah, back to your other question, to the sound engineer or the good mic, I'd take the sound engineer anytime, because if he's a good sound engineer, then he's going to have a good mic, I guess.
James doesn't even care.
He's got me muted. He's not even...
Last happened years ago, but on the past now, so we wouldn't really worry about it for tuning in. If you're live, // my number. Okay, right.
So, the conversation we were just having about you guys and the vinyl versus Serato kind of thing, we don't have something that similar, but we kind of are getting there now with beatboxing with the loop stations, don't you think? Because you have like solo beatboxers, and then you have these crazy new loop stations that are coming out where you can literally put an effect on and go, and then it turns it into a chord. And like, as a purist, I love loop stations, and people absolutely smash full shows with them, and it's amazing. But then when you're calling it beatbox and you're going, and then the sound is literally like piano chords coming out, it's kind of like, where do we stop?
I see. I'm on the fence on that as well. Not on the fence, but I mean, there's pros and cons. I mean, for the purist, it's so like, okay, you're using effects, but then it also allows people that aren't necessarily as good beatboxers to get their ideas across, because might be producers, and they're like, I've got this idea and I've got the access to make my idea a sound now, and not necessarily they might not be the best beatboxer, but you hear some of their ideas and like, wow, that's some sick.
And that's where the French champs did it right, because they
stole the lines, just about to say
I got there first. Because they literally just created a whole... You have the French beatbox champs. It's been going for, what, 10, 11, 12 years? What is it? Shout out to those guys.
Love France, the whole scene. Turntablists, beat-boys, beatboxers.
And the world loop station champion is French as well. Saro is an absolute beast. Shout out to Saro. And because this whole art form of loop station beatbox performance, like showcase, you can do a whole show with it, was getting so big and going into such its own lane, they just literally created a separate championships for it. So if you go to normal champs, it's solos, a beatbox championship, solos, tag teams, and then loop stations, whereas they just had a whole separate event at a different time just for loop stations. And I don't even think they called it a beatbox championship.
No,
It was like a
it's the loop station,
championship.
the France loop set, and it's open
the nail on the
to
head.
instruments. And fun enough, there's the rules for the Grand Beatbox Battle, one of the biggest beatbox battles. Ballsy's a winner of the Grand Beatbox Battle, one of his many accolades. But for that competition, every year people break the technology. But again, the rules are you can use this piece of equipment and a microphone. So you can interpret that. So there was a guy who won it that year who literally was like, I'm not even going to beatbox. And he just went...
Yeah.
Who was it?
Mando, was it?
Mando, it was Mando. And basically, the effects that he put on there and stuff. And he won it because he basically just showed that, look, these are the rules, you could do it. Now, again, with a loop station thing, this is where obviously you could bring in an instrument and you could start, I don't know if have you ever looped, either of you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it live looping or just sort of jamming and...
Hula hooping?
Just jamming, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, live looping, not on a gig or anything. Just I borrowed my friend's guitar pedal and tried it. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, it's huge.
It takes a lot of practice,
It's
though.
endless,
It's
yeah.
a different mentality, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's cool, man.
No, wicked, because, again, whether that's you using effects, whether that's you suddenly going, oh my God, I'm a one-man army, and finally you can build a kick and a drum and a snare and a thing, and all sorts, and then add your own melodies, and then you go, I've just made a track. Obviously it's slightly different because you're keeping in the the building of a loop and everything, rather than if you're producing it, so you might be able to sort of layer things differently.
Yeah, it's a different vibe. You can actually do it on some of these mixers by turning the echo fully up.
Oh, really?
And just so the echo never
The delay,
never
that
ends.
stuff.
You know what I mean? You just layer on top of it.
So good.
And you can do a lot of cool stuff with that. There's limitations because once you've added, you can't take it away. You know what I mean? So you've got to plan it out in your mind and have the right sounds. You have the right sound library or whatever. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Proper prior planning prevents peaceful performance, the 7 P's of life. That's it. When you have that, again, when you know what's of sound in your palette and stuff. But yeah, again, these are all things that sort of increase your creativity a bit more. Do you use loops or anything when you jam together at all?
I've had a go. It wasn't for me.
No, fair.
But,
That's why we didn't see the showcase today,
Yeah.
Next year, BeatGeek 2021, we're going to see Pnuts here, live, with a looper, just for you.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's on.
Dang.
I messed around with it in Ableton.
Yeah.
I've been messing around with trying to loop beat juggles and then play them in there. But yeah, but in terms of the turntable stuff, I've seen in the battles and stuff like that, it's quite the using the actual, like you're saying, the guy doing that, tapping the thing, not even scratching. We've seen it's been an old thing in battles where people
Rubber band.
The guy with the rubber band or
the guy with the rubber band. He's got a great name, by the way.
Brazilian guy.
What was the one where the guy took it apart? He took the whole thing.
Oh,
DJ Newmark.
That was,
of course, it was Newmark.
Blakey,
How can we forget?
Was it
I'm a
Blakey
disc
when he
jockey, remarkably cocky. Dun, 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 dun. That was his old routine, wasn't it?
Are you thinking of Blakey when he picked he took the platter off, took it upside down, and did a dubstep bass over a Dizzy Rascal track.
Yeah.
Madness.
Dizzy Rascal was at DMC's last year, randomly. That was very random.
Just randomly walking around in the practice room and we're all practicing.
He's coming for you. Ladies and gents, we're just about to wrap this up in a second. Just before we do, I was just going to wrap this up in a second. Any last words from the panel? But if there are any questions from the crowd, whether that's online, I might be able to get a message from Boxcon Global, or if there's any questions from the in-house crowd, there's 20,000 people, so it's very hard to be able to pinpoint someone. But if there are any questions, please put your hand up and we'll ask them to the panel. But any final thoughts from the panel?
I just want to say shout out to Beatgeek because it's amazing to be here.
Big
in
up.
a actual
Everyone
space.
make some noise because you are here at Beatgeek Live!
Yeah, it's amazing.
awesome.
It's amazing they've been able to put this on in these times. I mean, when we walked in, it was just wow, it's coming from an environment of no live events, and to be here is it's a privilege, and I'm thankful to everyone that set this all up, and for Rupert for putting this together and asking us to be around to be here. So thank you.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, can you give a huge round of applause from Ballsy, MC Zani, DJ Rasp, Pnuts, and Statik. Make some noise, please. And just checking there aren't any final questions from the audience or anything like that. No, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move swiftly on to the rest of the weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to kick off the music one more time. We've got an advert that's about to play. So in that meantime, put the kettle on. We'll see you in a bit.